A search for answers and accountability after the deadly Texas floods.
This will be ongoing through the interim and through the next session and probably beyond that.
A hearing in the heart of the flood zone reveals new information about that day.
The 3 guys in Kerr County who were responsible for sounding the alarm were effectively unavailable.
The marathon meeting and the work ahead to find ways to protect Texans from future disasters.
Are you calling them for a complete redrawing of the congressional map ahead of next week?
Just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats.
President Trump pushing Texas lawmakers to redraw voting lines to help Republicans get more seats in Congress. It could push Democrats to take drastic steps to block the plan.
I will say that, for instance, a quorum break, that is a procedural tool that legislators have within our pocket to use to represent our constituents.
We look closer at the maps that could reshape Texas politics and the battle to come over drawing the lines.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Members of the Texas Joint Committee on Disaster Preparedness traveled to Kerrville on Thursday. They heard hours of testimony about the response to the deadly floods and the aftermath. Kerr County leaders in particular faced scrutiny over their handling of the July 4th flooding. Investigator Matt Grant has been digging into the preparedness and has more about what lawmakers had to say.
Pointed comments in a packed hearing.
Everyone was here that day working their ass off, and you were nowhere to be found.
Many at Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly and at the Upper Guadalupe River Authority, its director telling lawmakers flood sirens were never installed and its 8 taxpayer-funded river gauges aren't locally monitored, with data instead collected by the National Weather Service.
I would say that you should be in the business of protecting people from the things that are going on in the river.
And at Kerr County Emergency Management Coordinator W.B. Thomas, who said he was sick and asleep. Sheriff Larry Latha, who said he didn't wake up until after people were already trapped on roofs. And Judge Kelly, who said he was out of town.
What was the issue? Why that evacuation order wasn't issued?
It was too late. It was too late.
During more than 3 hours of testimony, it was revealed there are no records of communication with Camp Mystic, where at least 27 campers and counselors died, and a code red mobile alert requested at 4:22 a.m., Latha said, wasn't issued until almost 40 minutes later, with dispatchers, quote, overwhelmed.
The 3 guys in Kerr County who were responsible for sounding the alarm were effectively unavailable.
And we had our own questions for Kerrville Mayor Joe Herring after records we obtained showed he never saw emails from the Texas Division of Emergency Management asking him to join a weather preparation call the day before the flood.
Do I wish I had seen that email? I do. But even if I had seen it, I don't know that it would have prepared me for the event that followed.
For state lawmakers, this hearing was about seeking solutions, including warning sirens and upgrading communications equipment.
There were so many lives lost here, so I'm interested in looking at the entire process.
But local leaders pushed back, saying the storm's ferocity wasn't forecasted and the devastation unavoidable.
What, if anything, do you wish you had done differently?
Well, I wish I had superhuman powers to see the future.
Matt joins us now. You've been digging deeper into the preparation for the floods and the response. That included emails and texts sent by Kerrville's mayor before the flood. What did you find there?
Yeah, so Kerrville Mayor Joe Herring was emailing the day before the flood, and it really was, as we've mentioned, just business as usual. He was communicating about a new golf resort. He was communicating about certain trees that were being planted. This really was just routine order of business preparations the day before. Very little, if anything, that we could find about flood preparations or about the weather. And of course, there were those TDEM emails, 2 of them that we found that were sent to him, telling him that he should join this weather call the day before the flood. The mayor tells us he never saw those emails. He wished he did, but ultimately he doesn't think that it would have made a difference because the warning levels and the the catastrophic flood, it wasn't there ahead of time, and so he doesn't think it would have made a difference.
So lawmakers had several questions for the director of the Upper Guadalupe River Authority about systems to monitor river levels. How do those play into the flood response?
Well, short answer, Josh, is it really didn't. Dr. William Rector is the director of the River Authority. He told lawmakers that there are 8 river gauges in Kirk County, but they're not monitored locally, that these gauges, instead the data is sent to the National Weather Service and it's collected by them. And that's something now that could change. Also, the future of the UGRA, which was established in 1939, that's also in question. One other thing about Dr. Rector, he's a medical doctor. This is not an elected position. He's appointed by the governor, and so voters can't vote him out if they're unhappy with the way he's doing his job.
This hearing was about seeking solutions. What kind of changes are lawmakers considering?
Yeah, and lawmakers have said over and over again, this is really ultimately not about finger pointing, but it's about finding solutions. And before the hearing began, I spoke with Representative AJ Louderback, and he reiterated that. He said that there's a number of things to look at. Among them is the communication both during the disaster and beforehand. That goes back to the mayor missing those emails from Tatum. Basically, how do you ensure that the people who need this critical information get it ahead of time and that they're actually seeing these messages? He also called for ways to better improve measuring rainfall and rising water. But ultimately, Representative Louderback emphasized that there's not just one thing to look at. The entire process and parts of the entire process really needs to change, and lawmakers stress that it's not just going to be at this special session, but the next legislative session and the one after that. This is going to be an issue that's going to be affecting the state, Josh, for years.
We'll certainly be hearing about it for a while, I'm sure.
We will, yeah.
Thank you very much, Matt. The hearing in Kerrville lasted more than 13 hours, and during that time, lawmakers heard from several people who shared personal stories about how the floods changed their lives. The testimony raised questions about the response before and after the floods. Capitol correspondent Adam Schwager was there for the hearing and reports on how people who testified say more needs to be done to help those recovering from the tragedy.
Almost a month to the day from the Independence Day floods, there's still so many first responders here, not just in Kerrville, but in Kirk County and throughout the Hill Country. And now lawmakers are listening to exactly what the people still need after this long month.
Those of us impacted by this catastrophe are not asking for handouts. We're asking for a functioning government.
Kylie Nediver lives in one of the only 5 homes in Bumblebee Hills untouched by the floods and says her community has been left behind by the state of Texas.
We need knowledgeable officials, debris removal, housing support, and mental health care.
Her neighbor in Bumblebee Hills wasn't as lucky.
My husband opened the door and the river raged and ran through the front and the back door and took all of our belongings with it.
Rosa Toller says she now has black mold issues from the flood, as her goddaughter accused first responders of not showing up to the ravaged Bumblebee Hills the first weekend.
Because they were not involved in the missing, they were forced to sit there and watch mold go up their walls.
And while residents like Toller will need long-term physical health assistance, almost everyone involved in the floods will likely need some form of mental health assistance after what they experienced.
Based off of the information from someone who testified earlier, I can without a doubt say that we recovered some of her family members.
And while lawmakers are still trying to figure out exactly what happened,
Bumblebee Hills has I don't want to say forgotten, I don't mean it that way, but has been left out of where a lot of work is being done right now, so we're trying to find answers for that.
They're looking towards the remainder of special session to see what they can do next.
Now the work begins. Let's get our bills drafted and try to get them over the finish line in the next 2 weeks.
The 30-day special session is set to expire on August 20th. In Kerrville, I'm Adam Schwager.
Governor Abbott vetoed a bill to ban hemp-derived THC, calling on lawmakers to find ways to regulate those products. But senators are doubling down on the ban.
Regulation is decriminalization. Whether you admit it or not, the practicality of enforcement effectively does decriminalize.
The new battle over banning THC and the plans some lawmakers have to change how the state handles cannabis. Republicans revealed a plan to redraw voting lines in Texas. Redistricting could give the GOP 5 new seats in Congress. Reaction to the map and how it could spark what some are calling the nuclear option for Texas Democrats. The Texas Senate once again voted to ban hemp-derived THC, doubling down on legislation passed in the regular session. That first attempt at a ban was blocked by Governor Greg Abbott's veto. The governor said instead of a ban, lawmakers should find ways to regulate THC products. But Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is still pushing for a full ban. He argues that products with THC currently sold in stores are ending up in the hands of children with harmful consequences. While the Senate carved out a few exceptions not present in the initial bill, the ban is nearly identical to the one passed months ago. The bill's author argued regulating THC is not possible.
Every law enforcement agency in Texas and their representatives have said we cannot enforce this. Regulation is decriminalization. Whether you admit it or not, the practicality of enforcement effectively does decriminalize.
At least one state senator begs to differ. Nathan Johnson is a Democrat who's also running to replace Ken Paxton as Attorney General. Johnson released two bills, one to regulate THC and another to decriminalize small amounts of cannabis and allow people to grow their own plants.
Policy has been a mess, and I've been advocating to clean it up for a long time, partly because of the inconsistency, but because of the enormous destructive force that our THC laws have been on people and families and communities in Texas, particularly, but not exclusively, people of color.
Johnson said he's heard interest in his proposal from Texas House members on both sides of the aisle, but some House members are joining the push for a ban. Republican Representative Gary Vandever filed companion legislation to the ban the Senate just passed. He called it a starting point to inform future decisions by the House.
Are you calling then for a complete redrawing of the congressional map ahead of next year?
Just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats.
President Trump pushing Texas lawmakers to redraw voting lines to help Republicans get more seats in Congress. The move has Democrats pushing back.
We will continue to do everything we can to fight back against this authoritarian power grab that Donald Trump is doing.
Now we have a plan. Republicans reveal the maps that could change who represents you in Congress. We dig into the differences and what comes next in the battle over Texas voting districts. Texas House Republicans released their first draft of plans to redraw congressional districts, and the proposal changes voting lines in several parts of Texas to create more districts that lean toward Republicans. The new map comes after President Donald Trump pushed for the state to draw new districts before next year's elections to pick up additional seats in Congress. Here's what he told reporters 2 weeks ago.
How many more seats do you want the Republicans to draw?
5.
And then what if California, New York, Illinois, and other blue states?
Yeah, well, that's
decide to do
okay
this?
too, but 5. I think we get 5. And there could be some other states. We're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition. Texas would be the biggest one, and
So
that'll be 5.
are you calling then for a complete redrawing of the congressional map ahead of next year?
Just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats.
Republicans already hold 2/3 of the state's seats in Congress under the current Texas maps. To pick up 5 more seats, Republican map makers are being very surgical in areas around largely populated cities like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. We want to show you an example of how they're doing that. This is the area around Austin. District 37 and District 35 are both held by Democrats, Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar. District 35 has parts of East Austin and stretches all the way down to parts of San Antonio, but the new map makes big changes. District 35 no longer touches Austin. It now has a big part of San Antonio and loops around several South Texas counties. It's drawn to favor Republicans. In the 2024 election, Donald Trump won that area by 10 points. In the Senate, Ted Cruz had a 4-point advantage over Democrat Colin Allred. Meanwhile, District 37 over here expands into East Austin, and the way it's drawn makes it a safe seat for a Democrat. But the other Austin area seats lean Republican, and the new lines put Casar and Doggett in the same district, likely taking away one Democratic seat. Similar changes are happening in other parts of the state. We have an interesting feature in this week's State of Texas story on our website that lets you compare the current districts with the proposed plans using a slider to go between the two maps. In the Dallas area, 2 districts currently held by Democrats have been redrawn into districts currently held by Republicans. That puts 2 current members of Congress Congress in jeopardy. Dallas Democrat Mark Veazey would be in a red district held by Republican Roger Williams, and the maps put Democrat Julie Johnson in the same district as Republican Beth Van Dyne, with voting lines that would favor a GOP candidate. In Houston, the maps put longtime Democratic Congressman Al Green into the now vacant 18th Congressional District. That seat has been vacant since Sylvester Turner's death back in March. A special election in November will fill that vacancy. We need to make clear that these maps are not a done deal. First, they need to be approved by Texas lawmakers, and on Friday, House members held their first public hearing on the new maps. And as Capitol correspondent Dylan McKim shows us, they heard a lot of opposition to the plan.
For the first time, the lawmaker who filed the proposed redistricting map speaking candidly to the public.
These districts were drawn primarily using political performance.
37 of the 38 congressional districts are redrawn in Chairman Todd Hunter's plan. 5 of the districts were drawn to favor Republicans, fulfilling a demand from President Donald Trump and showcasing an ugly truth that both political parties use when in power.
You can draw districts based on political performance, political partisanship.
The proposed map does increase the number of districts with a majority of black or brown voters, but House Democrats argue that's misleading.
But maybe what the public don't know is those percentages may have been increased because there's knowledge that the lack of participation.
Hunter does admit, even though data shows an advantage for Republicans, anything can happen.
We have 5 partisan Republican seats. That doesn't mean you can't win them.
As state lawmakers debated in committee, the state's national minority delegation rallied in the rotunda with a message that what happens in Texas will cause a ripple effect around the country.
So you may win this battle, but let me be clear. You are not going to win this war.
In Austin, I'm Dylan McKim.
Democrats do not appear to have the votes to block the redistricting plan. However, they could choose to break quorum, likely by leaving the state, so the legislature does not have enough members in attendance to pass legislation. But Republicans have passed rules that toughen penalties for House members who break quorum. Those include fines of $500 per day and even potential expulsion from the House. We asked Austin Representative Gina Hinojosa if the rules could stop Democrats from leaving the state.
I won't reveal what strategy we're taking. Obviously, that would be counterproductive. But I will say that, for instance, a quorum break, that is a procedural tool that legislators have within our pocket to use to represent our constituents. Those rules, I believe, are unconstitutional under the Texas Constitution because they punish members for using what is a legislative tool.
U.S. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries came to Austin to meet with Texas Democrats. Reporters asked if he was pushing state legislators to break quorum to block attempts to redraw Texas's congressional map. He did not give a direct answer. Instead, he said it's up to state lawmakers to decide.
All options should be on the table to protect the people of Texas. But Texas Democrats are going to be the ones to decide that. We will fight them politically. We will fight them governmentally. We will fight them in court. We will fight them in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the people of Texas and beyond.
U.S. Senator John Cornyn said he believes that redistricting will be approved and courts will ultimately decide the voting districts. He was critical of Jeffries getting involved with state lawmakers.
I'm sure there are not many Texans willing to be preached at by a New York liberal about how to draw congressional districts in Texas. But I think Democrats are kind of in disarray. They are talking about leaving the state and abandoning the special session, where a lot of other important issues are going to be decided too. But I think it'll all work out over the coming weeks, and then it'll be up to the courts to pass on the districts that are actually drawn.
The push for redistricting in Texas could lead to other states to redraw their voting lines. California Governor Gavin Newsom is planning to work with his state's legislature to draw lines to gain more Democratic seats in an effort to offset potential Republican gains in Texas. Seeking accountability after tragedy, the push for answers continues in Texas. the questions for lawmakers, and how our team is finding facts after the floods. We started this program with details of lawmakers looking into the deadly Texas floods. We end today with a word on accountability. When floodwaters swept over Central Texas on July 4th, killing more than 100 in Kerr County alone, our investigative team went to work. We heard your questions. How could this happen? Were leaders prepared? And what will prevent this from happening again? We wanted answers too, and began requesting records of communication between officials that day. Some of you asked, why now? Shouldn't you wait for rescues and recovery to wrap up? Our answer was no. These questions need to be asked now, not only for viewers wondering, but also to get policymakers what we discover as soon as possible. We knew answers would likely be put on hold during the emergency, but this week, nearly a month later, we started getting responses to our requests. For one, they revealed just how unprepared and unaware local leaders were, and shed light on what went wrong with communication when it came to alerts and evacuations. We sent our reports to state lawmakers to review before a hearing with those local officials this week. We know some did, and will hopefully use them to craft stronger solutions to save lives in the storms ahead. Our journalists will keep at it because we know that's what's at stake. I'm Josh Hinkle. Thank you for watching State of Texas. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.